Please welcome Mark Sam Rosenthal. So in the lead up to the 1988 presidential nominating contest, I was in the 8th grade, and my dad had me research all the potential nominees and decide who I thought would make the best next president of these United States. So for weeks I read articles in the paper and I cut them out, and I had like a little presidential nominee scrapbook. And these were, I mean, this was like 88. I mean, I can't see you people, I imagine you're younger. Where you, hopefully some were born already. But anyway, I mean, you know, there's half of these people we don't remember anymore, like Jack Kemp. I mean, I don't, what happened to him? But anyway, I did all this research, and finally I was ready to present my findings. So I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, the best next president of these United States, I think, would be Michael Dukakis." And my dad smiled and he said, "Son, you're wrong." My father was a Republican, which I disapproved of. Yeah, he was a Republican. But he was in petrochemicals. You know, there's hardly any Democrats left in that business. But he was very, we didn't see eye to eye politically, but he was very supportive of other things. I mean, he was the parent who was at every performance of every school play I was in, not just one, all 4, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, same seat, which I also disapproved of. But he was there, and then in college, when he found out I was gay, he took me aside and he said, "Son, nothing you could ever do or say would make me not love you. I'm just sorry you'll never experience the joy of having a son." This was '92, you know, so before homosexuals had started adopting Ukrainian crack babies in such large numbers. It was a different time. And it was only a couple of years later, when I was a junior in college, that I was shocked when I found out that my dad had AIDS. Bring it down. That was sort of out of the blue, and he was still married to my mom, but I figured he got it in the usual way, which is butt sex with a dude, because I know how you get it. And he may have been a Republican, but he did not look like an IV drug user. I mean, he was a Rotarian. So that's not what he told everybody, though. He made up a story about, it's like a Good Samaritan story about how he had helped a bleeding homeless bum in the Exxon refinery parking lot in Baton Rouge, where we lived. How there must have been some blood contact, like, and got in maybe a scratch or a cut that he had or something like that, which is not how you get AIDS. If you have a Good Samaritan impulse, I don't want to stymie it, because that's not how you get AIDS. But he even played the race card because it was a bleeding black homeless bum. Just to ramp it up, people that brought you Run DMC and watermelon, here's AIDS. Maybe a little more believable for some people, but there was a lack of trust in the story in our house, apparently. My mom says she had Dad swear on a stack of Bibles that there had been no man-on-man shenanigans. I was not there, but I'm told that he did that, although I really don't know how many Bibles we actually would have had in the house. That part of the story was never explained to me, where these Bibles came from. And also, Dad was Jewish and Mom is a Methodist, so I'm not sure which Bible he was swearing on. I think Jews actually just read the first half and then quit before they get to the good news, which makes them the only people in the world doomed to eternal damnation because of attention deficit disorder. But anyway, apparently he swore. Anyway, while he was sick, one of our Jewish cousins, Ian, came down to visit. And he brought his camera and his tripod, and he took all the lampshades off the lamp in the living room to make a more like photographic studio lighting situation. And he had us take a series of final portraits of him and my father, which was it was premature. It's like a linen death mask portrait, but Dad was still alive. But the other thing that came out of Ian's visit was that he apparently had some connection to some AIDS research specialist at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which I maybe not still around anymore after yesterday, I don't know. They had some tornadoes. People watch the Weather Channel. Okay. Anyway, I guess I do. But I'll be watching the wedding in the morning. Anyway, apparently at the time, this was the University of Alabama at Birmingham was like one of the leading AIDS research centers in the country, which seems strange. You don't usually think AIDS research when you think Birmingham. Think of like Sunday school bombings and dogs. But anyway, apparently that was the case, and so an appointment was made, and it was decided that I would go up with Dad. So we drove up to Birmingham, and spent a couple of nights there, and we went and saw this AIDS research specialist, and we sat in his office, and Dad told the story again of the bleeding black bum AIDS, and the guy didn't actually call my father out on it, but you could tell by the look on his face, because he was an AIDS research specialist, that he wasn't actually buying the story. And of course I was sitting there not buying it either, and it was a humiliating, excruciating, weird moment of total no trust. And then there was another one that night in the hotel room where we were staying, where Dad just kind of apropos of nothing opened the bedside table, got out the Gideon Bible, swore on it in front of me, and was like, "That's how I got it. Do you believe me?" And I was like, well, I looked at him, I looked at David Letterman on the TV behind him, and I was just like, sure, I believe you. But I didn't. And later that summer, one Sunday when Mom was at church, I confronted Dad. Now, it's weird enough to sort of talk to your parents about them having sex, but when talking to your parents about them having secret gay sex is like, it's uncomfortable. But I looked at him and I was like, "Dad, I know you got this by having sex with another man. I just need to hear you say it." And then I stared him down, and then he broke down in the chair. And he was like, yes, once. And he confessed that he had a homosexual encounter once in Houston, where he traveled monthly to make business calls among the many petrochemical corporate giants headquartered there. Now, I know from my own experience that once I had butt sex, I was hooked. So I kind of figured it was more than one encounter, but I realized, one was difficult enough for him to admit to, so I let it go at that. And he died the following January, not before there'd been a really dramatic, lifetime-worthy deathbed reconciliation scene between me and him, although he was in a coma, so it was kind of one-sided. And I was left to ponder, can you love the memory of someone you couldn't totally trust? Or could you trust something someone said if you couldn't trust everything they said? Because there were things that Dad had done, and places he had been, and people he had been with that I will never know because they are not what he said. I've often wondered, which man in Houston, Texas gave this deadly virus to my father? Was he a call boy, a man from some nameless bar, or another visiting businessman with a wife and children? When Dad was sick, but before he died, I took a walk with him around the neighborhood. He was, at that point, only wearing the tracksuits that he would wear till the end because he had lost so much weight that I think he needed the elastic waistband to keep his pants up. And he was leaning on me, and we were walking around our neighborhood and nodding at everybody that you see, because we're Southern, and even when death's at the door, you just gotta nod at the neighbors. How you doing? How you doing? Great. It's nice out. Ooh, it's humid. Every fucking day. Like, I'm walking outside today, I'm like, it feels like Christmas. It's like 75, muggy. I'm like, where are the lights? And Dad turned to me and he said, do what you want with your life, because I never did. And I believed him, because that seemed like the truth. But it is funny, because when I think about Dad and trust and the truth, I actually, more than that, I think about McDonald's. And another trip to Houston, one that my dad took me on when I was 5 or 6. We went with our friend and family physician, Dr. Ed, and his son Stuart, who's really short and once broke both his arms at the same time in a playground accident. Poor kid. And if his mother wipe his ass. Anyway, his mother was already named Brownie. You can't make this up. You all should come to Baton Rouge sometime. Anyway, we were going to Astroworld, the theme park that unfortunately Six Flags closed. But the thing that I really remember most about that trip was the morning that we left Baton Rouge, because I was very nervous all of a sudden. I really don't think I'd ever been away from my mother before. Dad knew the thing that would calm me down was to promise me McDonald's. I wanted French fries. But when we went through the drive-thru, we discovered to my horror that as it was before 10:30 in the morning, fries were not yet on offer. Instead, a painfully inadequate breakfast menu presented its paltry choices. Get the hash browns, Dad said. What's a hash brown? I asked. You'll like it, he said. I promise. And you know what? I loved that hash brown. I loved that hash brown more than anything else I had yet put in my mouth, and more than most things I have put in it since. It's funny, it's the small things, but you see, even though there had been deceptions and secrets and stories I could not trust, my father didn't lie about everything, because nobody does. And that's my story about trust. Thanks.